Greetings. My name is Wade Brown. I am a Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, the Inactive Ready Reserve. Nothing that I say here is intended to represent the United States Marine Corps, the Department of the Navy, or the Department of Defense, or any other element of the federal government for that matter. I am speaking here as a private citizen, and I hope you'll pardon me if there are a few pauses in what I have to say. On August the 28th, while still on active duty, my active duty ended on 30 September. As a result of funding shortages, I was not continue on active duty as a reservist. That is the only reason that I did not continue on active duty beyond 30 September. On August the 28th, prior to the Marine Corps' mandate for a COVID-19 vaccination, I wrote an article under a pseudonym, W.E. Tatum. The title of that article is "The U.S. Department of Defense Should Stop Mandatory COVID-19 Vaccinations." And the reason I wrote that article is still extant, and I still believe in the argument that I made on that day. I did that under a pseudonym because I was not anxious to make a stir while on active duty, or as a Marine, or as a Marine officer. Yet I believed and continue to believe strongly in the arguments that I made in that article. And for those who are interested in the contents of that article, that you can go and read it. Again, it's the U.S. Department of Defense should stop mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations. And I'll make a brief statement about what that article was about. It simply said that because we do not know of the long-term effects of any of the vaccines that have been developed for COVID-19, because we don't have any long-term effect or side effect data, that to mandate a 100% vaccination rate across the entire Department of Defense, as well as a supporting establishment for the Department of Defense through the general services and through contractors, is foolish. Is taking a foolish and unnecessary risk. And so I still believe in those arguments. I believe they're sound, and I believe we continue to risk the operational health of our defense structure. In any case, on my timeline here, on August 28th is when I wrote that article. Again, I wrote it under a pseudonym, intentionally, because I am not someone who wants to create disorder in the system, and yet I am compelled by my position, my beliefs, my intellect, every part of my being on this particular issue. So I did that on August the 28th while still on active duty. In the middle of September, in response to the mandates that were coming down from the White House, and I have that executive order handy if I need to refer to it, down through the Department of Defense and down to the chiefs, the service chiefs, the Marine Corps, the Commandant of the Marine Corps promulgated a Marine administrative message that mandated the COVID-19 vaccine for all Marines. This, frankly, was expected, but was still shocking in its reality from my perspective. In the middle of October, I was off of active duty, and I have not joined a reserve unit since leaving active duty. There were 2 or 3 that I was considering joining, but I have ceased attempting to join a reserve unit because of the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. In the middle of October, I started researching my options, and specifically something called request Mast procedures. This culminated in on November the 5th. I submitted a request Mast to the Commandant of the Marine Corps via the general officers in my chain of command. Request Mast proceedings, I would refer the audience, whoever's watching this video, to go read about request Mast proceedings. That is Marine Corps Order 1700.23 Golf. So I submitted a request Mast on this particular issue to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. in an effort to use the chain of command to bring to light and to shed light on a certain factual information, which I will be sharing shortly. So on November the 5th, I submitted that request Mast, again attempting to use the chain of command properly. The request Mast proceedings were followed, as you will hear, and everyone that I dealt with in the Marine Corps, as I have expected, are doing things in a manner that is proper. So on the 8th, the request Mast hearing was heard. It was heard by an officer acting for the first general officer in the chain of command. That officer denied my request. I'll read the request Mast in a moment. And he also denied forwarding it up the chain of command to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. That denial was presented to me formally. I signed it on the 10th, basically acknowledging the denial. Some of this information I'll read. On the 15th, it was signed by a witness. So it was stopped in its tracks at the first general officer in the chain of command. I was not satisfied with this, and so I submitted the request Mast, an additional request Mast, directly to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, copying the Commanding General of Marine Forces Reserve and the Commanding General of Force Headquarters Group, who are both, those two general officers, junior to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, are my general officer chain of command. And then I waited. I waited for a response. On the 22nd of November, I received a response from the Acting Inspector General of the United States Marine Corps, stating that the request Mast procedures had been heard, that it was responsive, timely, and demonstrated personal involvement, which it did, that the request Mast process was exhausted in accordance with the order, which it has been, and that the request Mast is beyond the scope of the Commandant's authority. In a sense, I agree with that, and in a sense, I don't. Citing the Secretary of Defense mandated service members receive the COVID-19 vaccination in the 24 August memo and the executive order from 9 September 2021, directing vaccination of all executive departments and agencies across the U.S. government. So I disagree that it's beyond the scope of it may be beyond the scope of the Commandant's perceived authority, but I do not believe it is beyond the authority of any one of us to deny what I perceive to be an unlawful order. These are all factual statements about the dates and the actions that I have taken to date in order to try to address and respond to the vaccine mandate. At this time, I'm going to read my request Mast that I sent to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, that I first submitted to the chain of command, that was denied, and that I then submitted to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. I request Mast with General David H. Berger, Commandant of the Marine Corps. I believe a grave error has been made and that it ought to be corrected decisively and immediately. MAR Admin 462/21, mandatory COVID-19 vaccination, is not a lawful order. This is the content of my request Mast proceedings. The basis for this request Mast is the most authoritative source on the COVID vaccine, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, specifically the current FDA package insert and fact sheet. These documents form the FDA's official statements of risk so that recipients can exercise informed consent. They make plain, 1, that there are substantial unknown risks associated with taking the vaccine, and 2, that the public, i.e. operational benefit, is questionable. Memorandum attached. In addition, there is mounting widespread evidence of the vaccine's inefficacy and potential to do harm. There is also clear evidence that this has become a matter of partisan politics and constitutional gravity. Our oath is to the Constitution, and our passion is our mission and our Marines. The mandate and compliance to it through the MAR admin is undermining good order and discipline, unnecessarily harming Marines, and degrading our operational readiness. That was Chapter 6, or Section 6 of the Marine Corps Request Mast Form NAVMAC 11296 that I submitted to the chain of command on November 5th, and then again directly to the Commandant on November the 17th. Section 7 is the requested resolution. My requested resolution is as follows. When it comes to safety, quote, Anyone observing a condition that makes firing dangerous shall immediately call ceasefire. End quote. I am calling ceasefire, and I believe the following remedy is proper, executable, and morally necessary. Resolution: issue a MAR admin canceling MAR admin 462/21 and its supplementary MAR admins. State that all COVID vaccination requirements are on hold pending further review. State that until the review is complete, receiving the vaccine is optional. Immediately cease all restrictions and other measures that identify, discriminate in the treatment of, or distinguish in any way personnel who have not been vaccinated. Encourage Marines, especially pregnant Marines, to read the FDA vaccine package insert and speak with a physician about their individual health situation before receiving the vaccine. Strategically, protect Marines by ensuring appropriate institutional resistance is maintained with regard to partisan, quote-unquote, emergency declarations and politically motivated executive orders. That was my requested resolution to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Because I have not asked the officer in question his permission to read his specific response on this form, I will not read his words, nor divulge who it is that responded. It was an officer who was appropriate. It was the appropriate officer, and the two things that were selected with regard to the acknowledgement of final disposition were in Section 11, final disposition by a selected subordinate commander. Without any intimidation, coercion, or fear of retaliation, I voluntarily disclosed my request Mast to a commander who was subordinate to the commander. I originally requested Block 5A, and I accept and fully understand the disposition of my grievance. That selected. In addition, I selected request denied. I understand my request Mast was denied, and I put in this particular text. I understand my request Mast was denied by the subordinate commander named above, and that my request for this request Mast to proceed via the chain of command to the Commandant was also denied. Again, I signed that on November the 10th. It was witnessed on November the 15th. With regard to the basis for my argument and the basis for my request Mast, I again relied on FDA documents, 2 FDA documents that are current. Today is December the 1st, 2021, and I checked these documents. One of them was updated to November the 19th. But both of the documents referenced herein still contain the same language that I'm about to tell you as of today, December the 1st of 2021. So now I shall read the memorandum for the record that was an attachment to the request Mast. From Lieutenant Colonel Brown to Commandant of the Marine Corps. Subject: COVID vaccine, lack of safety and lack of operational health benefit. Paragraph 1. The COVID-19 vaccine is not demonstrably safe for individuals and offers no measurable, proven public or operational health benefit. Paragraph 2. A review of the vaccine package insert for the only currently approved COVID vaccine, trade-named Comirnaty, states plainly that there are many unknown and unmeasured risks for any Marine receiving the vaccine, and relatedly, there's an uncertain operational health benefit. With regard to comparing the risks of this vaccine to, say, the anthrax vaccine, please continue reading. Paragraph 2A. Where either the individual risk or the operational health benefit more certain and measurable, a rational risk-reward analysis could be made, i.e., a Marine might be subjected to a relatively high risk if a clear, substantiated, and present operational benefit could be measured. Or if the risk to a Marine was demonstrably so minute as to be virtually non-existent, and the risk was assumed in order to gain an unknown but likely operational health benefit, such a risk would be easy to accept. Such cases would not require mandates or even coercion. Their basis for their implementation would be unassailable. As a side note, I'll interrupt my reading to simply say, it can be taken from this that I am not anti-vaccination, that I have taken every other vaccination that the military has brought to me, and that in every case, all of those vaccines were FDA approved and were not under emergency use authorization. Paragraph 2B. However, both sides of this value proposition, however, speaking to the previous paragraph, both sides of this value proposition are uncertain, and this is made plain in the two most authoritative documents that exist regarding the present approved vaccine. Those two documents, the official current FDA vaccine package insert, also known as the prescribing information, and the official current FDA fact sheet, include some clear and frankly striking statements. Again, as a side note, both of these documents, the current FDA vaccine package insert for Comirnaty, as well as the fact sheet for recipients and caregivers, contain the same contents that I'm about to read to you. The reasons for emphasis on the word current are: one, these documents constitute an official, authoritative, and comprehensive synopsis of all studies, statistics, and information that has been vetted for release by the Food and Drug Administration. Further, I acknowledge that these documents may change over time due to more substantial information becoming available. The first vaccine approved by the FDA is called Comirnaty. It has the same formulation as the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. These are a few direct quotes from the official FDA package insert for the Comirnaty vaccine. From paragraph 6.2, the following adverse reactions, quote, the following adverse reactions have been identified during post-marketing use of Comirnaty, including under emergency use authorization. Because these reactions are reported voluntarily from a population of uncertain size, it is not always possible to reliably estimate their frequency or establish a causal relationship to vaccine exposure. Cardiac disorders, myocarditis, pericarditis, gastrointestinal disorders, diarrhea, vomiting, immune system disorders, severe allergic reactions including anaphylaxis and other hypersensitivity reactions. For example, rash, pruritus, urticaria, angioedema, musculoskeletal and connective tissue disorders, pain in extremity, arm. Paragraph, my own paragraph, 2b, interpretation. Serious adverse reactions were discovered after the vaccine was released and injected into people in the open market. That is essentially what this information is telling you. The frequency of these adverse reactions is not known. That is exactly what this FDA package insert is telling you. If this is true, it simply means that anyone saying that the vaccine is quote-unquote safe is in disagreement with the FDA. Subparagraph C. From paragraph 8.1, pregnancy, in the FDA package insert. Available data, quote, available data on Comirnaty administered to pregnant women are insufficient to inform vaccine-associated risks in pregnancy, end quote. Interpretation, the risks to pregnancy, to the woman, or to the child are not known due to a lack of data. This is a factual statement from the FDA package insert. From paragraph 8.2, lactation risk summary. Quote from the FDA package insert, quote, it is not known whether Comirnaty is excreted in human milk. Data are not available to assess the effects of Comirnaty on the breastfed infant or on milk production or excretion, end quote. In other words, no one knows whether nursing babies are ingesting Comirnaty when they nurse. The effects of breastfed infants is not known, and there is no data available to assess the risk. For pregnant women and for babies, this is an insertion, an editorial insertion at this point, there is no data to inform you about associated risks with taking this vaccine according to the FDA package insert. Go to the website of the FDA or Comirnaty.com and pull up the FDA package insert. This information is current as of today. You will find this information there. From paragraph 8.4, pediatric use. Interestingly, this is currently conflicting with what's going on elsewhere in the FDA. Quote from the FDA package insert. The safety and effectiveness of Comirnaty in individuals younger than 16 years of age have not been established. In other words, the safety risks to children under 16 are not known. The effectiveness of the vaccine for children under 16 is not known. This simply means that if a child is vaccinated, they're being subjected to an unknown risk for an unknown effect. Or put another way, they're assuming some level of risk while attaining an uncertain benefit. From paragraph 13.1, carcinogenesis, mutagenesis, and impairment of fertility. Quote from the FDA package insert. Comirnaty has not been evaluated for potential to cause carcinogenicity, genotoxicity, or impairment of male fertility, end quote. A genotoxic substance is a substance which is damaging to genetic material, according to Merriam-Webster. In other words, the risks that Comirnaty will cause cancer, damage a person's genetic material, or impair male fertility are not known, according to the FDA package insert prescribing information for Comirnaty. These quantities and risks are not known. Next, I'm going to quote from the Vaccine Information Fact Sheet for recipients and caregivers about Comirnaty COVID-19 vaccine mRNA and the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine to prevent coronavirus disease 2019 for use in individuals 12 years of age and older. This document is the one that was updated on 19 November, and everything that I'm about to read to you remains in that document, which is available from the FDA. Again, this is the information fact sheet for recipients and caregivers. Quote from the FDA. Quote, side effects that have been reported with the vaccine include, and I'm not going to read off the long list of side effects because you can go read those. This is the part of the quote that I'd like you to focus on after listing all of the side effects that have been reported, and there's a long list. It says, quote, these may not be all the possible side effects of the vaccine. Serious and unexpected side effects may occur. The possible side effects of the vaccine are still being studied in clinical trials. I want to insert another comment here. I looked up the vaccine package inserts and the vaccine recipient and caregiver information for the anthrax vaccine, the measles vaccine, the flu vaccine. And I probably could have kept looking for other vaccines. None of those vaccines contain this statement. The possible side effects of the vaccine are still being studied in clinical trials. This vaccine, of all the vaccines that are currently being given to basically being approved in the U.S., is the only one that I've been able to find that has this information in its documentation that says that the clinical trials are still ongoing. The possible side effects of the vaccine are still being studied in clinical trials. Let's interpret this. There are clinical trials ongoing that have not been completed. There is an unknown risk of additional, unexpected, serious side effects. This information is accurate from the FDA as of 19 November 2021 and is the most up-to-date information from the FDA as of today, December the 1st, 2021. Serious side effects are defined as those that can cause death or irreversible damage. In other words, when this says, these may not be all the possible, quote, these may not be all the possible side effects of the vaccine, serious and unexpected side effects may occur, that means that death may occur. And the possibility of death occurring is still being studied in clinical trials. That's exactly what that means. That's FDA information. Quote, the duration of protection against COVID-19 is currently unknown. Interpretation. No one knows how long any protection that is provided by the vaccine will last. This one statement alone calls into question any argument for a provable operational health benefit. If the shot is only good for 2 weeks, or if its efficacy begins to fall off after 3 months, and if it has unknown risks, This is paragraph 3 of my memorandum to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. It's attached to a request mast. Let us do a bulletized rational recap of the above. For this vaccine, the frequency of adverse reactions, including serious adverse reactions, is not known. Many adverse reactions were not discovered until the vaccine was administered in the open market to humans. It is unknown whether additional adverse reactions will arise. There is an unknown risk to pregnant women and to the unborn due to lack of data. It is impossible to inform a pregnant woman of the risks, there being no data to do so, and therefore any consent by a pregnant woman is technically uninformed consent. I would note here that I'm not a physician, and if there is a pregnant woman who wants to seek the opinion of a physician and basically receives information from that physician, they can have informed consent. But based on the information provided by the FDA, there is no data to informed consent. That's exactly what it says in the document, in the package insert, the prescribing information. There is an unknown risk to nursing infants. There is an unknown risk to children under the age of 16. We do not know if the vaccine is carcinogenic. We do not know whether it damages our genetic material. We do not know if it harms male fertility. These are all clear and plain statements in the FDA package insert and prescribing information. The clinical trials studying side effects are incomplete and ongoing. No one knows how long it will protect you. No one who has received the vaccine can know whether or to what extent they are still being protected. My paragraph 4, comparison to the anthrax vaccine, also known as the AVA vaccine, if you go to the FDA website. Please note that I do not address the highly significant differences between anthrax itself and COVID-19 with regard to mortality rates, infection rates, and the like. I will insert a comment here and basically say that I believe that the mortality rate for anthrax is much higher than that for COVID-19, and I believe that's a statistically supportable statement. A side-by-side reading of the package inserts comparing the COVID vaccine to the anthrax vaccine reveals that virtually all risks associated with the anthrax vaccine have either been identified and stated or ruled out. This becomes clear with a simple reading of the two documents. History of the anthrax vaccine from the United States National Institutes of Health. The anthrax vaccine had developmental milestones starting in the 1880s, continuing with the development of a widely used animal vaccine in the 1930s, clinically controlled trials in humans from 1955 to 1959, and eventual licensure by the FDA in 1970. The anthrax vaccine was subjected to comprehensive safety reviews on at least 3 different occasions between 1970 and the present. Again, regarding anthrax, the 2005 emergency use authorization for the anthrax vaccine was based on a court case and is completely different in nature than the Emergency Use Authorization Act for the COVID vaccine. And I'm now in paragraph 4C of my memorandum to the Commandant. A Marine's resistance to taking the COVID-19 vaccine cannot be compared in any meaningful way to the same Marine's past compliance in taking the anthrax vaccine, or any vaccine for that matter. The two vaccines are simply not comparable with regard to individual safety or operational benefit. Paragraph 5. I'm going to edit some of this because of personal information that I do not wish to reveal at this time. I was born in a certain year. I went to Coast Guard boot camp in 1991. I have served as a Marine and an officer since 1998. I am a grandfather. 30 years of uniformed service provides some measure of weight to the introspection I have undertaken in order to make the decision to act on this. Some things seem so obvious as to negate the necessity of revisiting them. But in matters of principle, it is no foolish thing to clean the lens, to check its position, to inspect it for defects, to look through it both ways, to read again the instructions that came with it, to certify its manufacture and where possible its past use, and to hold counsel about it with trusted advisors to ensure that it is the best for the purpose at hand. Such is the lens that I attempt to peer through. If my perspective proves in the end to be in error, it was not for lack of consideration. Paragraph 5b. Our Marines, and indeed all people, having been made in the image of their Creator, deserve to be respected, and they ought to be recipients of a compassion that is bounded by wisdom. Such is the example that has been revealed to us. Sometimes we in leadership, in doing our best to be good stewards of an almost inconceivable trust, make mistakes. In such cases, it is no error to correct an error. It is, however, especially injurious, not only to ourselves and our reputations, but as it has been multiplied to those we lead, to continue on in an error after the realization has been made. Ergo, if I have any regret with regard to this action, it is that I delayed doing it for so long. In paragraph 6, I provided my updated contact information to the Commandant and signed this memorandum. Why am I posting this information? Why am I producing this video? What is my purpose in this? First of all, I want to pause here and say that if you have watched this video to where we're at now, I've tried to deliver factual information to you based on 2 documents that are current, provided by the Food and Drug Administration. The Food and Drug Administration is charged with studying and proving the safety of food and drugs that we consume in the United States. It is our authority for determining, for medical things such as drugs and vaccinations, it is our authority for being able to determine whether we should consent to taking something and putting it in our bodies or having it injected into our bodies. That is why I have appealed to no other authority in my request mass to the Commandant and in my requested resolution that his order be rescinded and the MAR admins be canceled, even though I know that the order came down from the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. The fact is that no one, since there are unknown risks, as spelled out in the very documents that I just read to you, no one can truly give informed consent about this vaccine based upon the unknown risk factors. So, from here on, for the rest of this video, I'm going to talk about my personal reasons for bringing this information to you and for exposing to you my request mass to the Commandant of the Marine Corps and the different steps that I have taken, both through writing an article under a pseudonym as well as trying to work through my chain of command for various reasons and along various lines of argument for trying to stop the mandate of this vaccine. I want to state again for the record that I am not speaking on behalf of the Marine Corps. I am intentionally not in uniform. I am a member of the Active Ready Reserve and I'm attached to no unit. I'm not speaking for any commander. I'm not speaking for the Navy, the Department of Defense, and all the other disclaimers that can be stated. I also want to state that I am a believer in good order and discipline, and that I would not want anyone to derive from anything that I am saying here that I believe that in a breakdown of order or in a breakdown of discipline, or that I believe that Marines or anybody else in the Department of Defense, or any human being for that matter, should do anything except under the power of their own conscience. And that in this country, a free country, and under our Constitution, which I have sworn an oath to support and defend, we are free to make such decisions when such decisions when there's no reasonable argument that can be made in support of a mandate. In this case, no reasonable argument can be made. The mortality rate is low, the risks are uncertain, the chaos and havoc that is being created by this mandate far exceed the chaos of 20% or how many ever percentage of people it is that are currently standing up and refusing to take this vaccine. Instead, there are an unknown and untold numbers of people who are leaving the Department of Defense, who are leaving the uniformed service, people like myself who resigned from a DoD contracting position rather than get the vaccine. That is the case for myself. I am not required by the Marine Corps to take the vaccine since I am in the inactive ready reserve, but my DoD contractor employer attempted to force me to take the vaccine, and I refused. So what do I hope to gain by publishing this video? Again, not as a representative of the military and not in uniform, but as a free citizen of the United States. Well, the first thing I hope to do is to encourage those who have resisted the vaccine mandate to continue on in your resistance. There are multiple reasons to deny taking this vaccine. One of them that I just spelled out was just in pure reason alone. And it is science-based, and it's mathematics-based, and it's document-based. You can, on pure reason alone, decline to take the vaccine. And in that sense, and in a very real way, you can declare your own exemption. You don't have to request exemption for this vaccine. You can declare your own exemption. You find the risks to be intolerable for your age group. I don't know who I might be speaking to out there, but if you're 25 years old or 30 years old or 40, your age honestly doesn't matter. If you have assessed the risks of taking this vaccine and the risks posed to public health of you not taking the vaccine, and your own cost-benefit analysis has brought you to a place where you are not willing to have your body injected with this vaccine, then you can declare yourself exempt. You need not request it from anyone on any basis other than your own reason and logic and your freedom as an American and as a human being. For those of you who are requesting an exemption on religious grounds, I'm not aware that any of your, and I have talked to many, many people on this, I'm not aware that any religious exemptions have been granted. The first MAR admin that came out mandating the vaccine for Marines did not even mention religious exemptions or the possibility of requesting them. And in the Department of the Navy, if you go and look at the order, you will see that religious exemption requests are supposed to be handled on an individual basis. I have on good authority that many of the denials are, the rubber stamps are identical. They're not personalized. They're not answering individual questions. That the request for exemption along religious grounds has been a farce and has basically not been honored. And so part of the reason I'm doing this, one part is to encourage those who are standing up along any grounds. You are right and you are reasonable if you are resisting this mandate for yourself. If you decline, that is your right to do so. Two, if you're requesting an exemption along religious grounds, I'm doing this to stand with you. I happen to be a Christian, so that is a fact. I factually state that I am a Christian, and I state that I attempt to adhere to tenets of Christianity. I do not claim that I'm a perfect representative of Christianity or that I represent all Christians. That is just a personal statement. I'm a Christian, and I'm not ashamed of it. And my faith, my Christian faith, in my faith, freedom is thematic. Freedom is something that Jesus Christ has given to me as a believer in him. And it's a freedom that can't be taken by human authorities. And that freedom extends, my advocacy for freedom extends to being free to choose your religious practices, for example. So as a Christian, I'm not afraid of what is true. I'm in pursuit of the truth. And so I encourage there to be freedom for people to pursue what it is they believe in. So in this way, the freedom that's espoused by Christianity runs in parallel to the freedom that's espoused in the Constitution of the United States, runs in parallel to the freedom that allows people to have religious expression of all kinds. There are, look this up if you're not aware of it, look up the Sikhs, S-I-K-H, and the religious exemptions that they've been able to win in the military to have beards and wear turbans. Because of the religious importance of those things for those individuals. So I'm standing up, but part of the reason I'm doing this is to stand up for people of all religious and faith backgrounds who are denying the vaccine, who are basically saying, no, thank you, I don't want this. It goes to the core of my conscience to not take this vaccine. And I'm in support of you, and I'm in support of your religious freedom. So I'm encouraging you to keep standing on the principles that brought you to a place where you would stand against all of the forces that are aligned and arrayed against you right now, that are tempting you to force you to do something against your own good conscience before God, before the God that you worship. And in America, you should have that freedom to say no to something like this. So I'm standing in support of you. I might offer here that I've heard several arguments against people who are standing up for a religious exemption. I've heard one that basically said, well, if you ever took any other vaccine in the past that used fetal material, then your argument is not valid because you've accepted a vaccine in the past. You now have to accept this vaccine as well, and your religious exemption does not hold true. What kind of argument is that? What kind of argument is that? What kind of person would say, yeah, you did something that you now regret many years ago, and because you did that thing you regret many years ago because maybe now you've studied it and you know more about it, and so now you know and you believe that you actually did something wrong inadvertently. What kind of person would say, you did this thing that you regret, now you have to do it again because you did it the first time? The very basis for someone holding authority over you, the ability to turn down your religious exemption, that is an authority that people who are sitting in that place where they think they have that authority should be doing so with great trepidation. How can you speak to someone's internal religious convictions? So those are two reasons that I'm doing this. A third reason that I'm doing this is the reason that prompted me to write the letter to RealClearDefense under the pseudonym of W.E. Tatum. And I was gratified to see others giving public statements that align with my viewpoint on this. When you take your entire Department of Defense and all the contractors and all the GS employees that support it, and you submit them to an unknown risk, could harm their health in the long term in ways that we can't predict yet, which is, again, exactly what the FDA package insert states. We don't know of future side effects or undiscovered side effects. We haven't had the time to do longitudinal studies. That's why I requested to the Commandant to delay the mandate, to delay it, to stand up for people who say, no, there's no longitudinal studies on this. Maybe this presents an operational risk that far exceeds the accepted risk and danger of not vaccinating our entire military force. And this is where my own experience and my own rank and my years of service, and honestly, the duty incumbent upon me is to speak out and say, oh, I dissent, I have a different opinion about this, and I'm going to make it as strongly as I can. Although the risk of actually harming large swaths of the Department of Defense, due to long-term effects, may be small. The fact that the risk is there seems to suggest quite strongly that it's not a risk you should accept if you're in a position of leadership. So that is another reason that I am making this argument and bringing it out to the public, not as a representative of the Marine Corps, not in uniform, not in order to create harm to good order and discipline, but instead actually in support of those things. People are leaving service to this country, not just military service. Contractors are resigning. They are walking away from their jobs. The kinds of people that you are losing, and as American citizens, this is something that ought to be a conversation for all of us, because it affects our national defense in ways that are not being acknowledged or measured. I know individually and specifically many people who have very unusual and difficult skill sets and technological abilities and know-how that are working on some very sensitive and strategically important Department of Defense projects. And they are leaving because they are not going to take this vaccine. What is the operational damage that we are doing to ourselves for all these individuals who are taking their base of knowledge and experience with them? They are people of principle, and they are not going to change their minds on this. And the Department of Defense, all the way from the President down, through the Department and to the Joint Chiefs, this is damage that you're doing. This is damage you're doing to our country's ability to defend itself. And it's coming at your own hand through the decisions that you're making. This is my opinion. A fourth reason is common sense for everyone. If we lived in a circumstance in which there was a deadly virus that were killing people by the droves across age cohorts around the world, you would not have to incentivize people to get vaccinated against it. People would be lining up and demanding it. They would be paying to be vaccinated. There would be a demand for the vaccine, and it would be universal. That is not the case. So it's, in a very real sense, it's common sense. If we actually perceived that there was an emergency, which frankly, many of us do not perceive any emergency whatsoever. If we perceived a danger to ourselves or to our children, would we not take any reasonable means to protect them? My children will not be vaccinated. I will not be vaccinated. Because there is no perceivable or measured threat to my children. And the threat to myself, in my age category, I'm in my 50s, and I'm healthy, is minute, and the risk is unknown. So I'm not going to take the vaccine. And it's common sense. It's common sense. We're all able to read. We're able to read statistics. We're able to do research. We don't need you to make a decision for us. If the vaccine was a true solution to solve the problem for us, we would seek it out ourselves, and we would be happy to pay for it and stand in line for it and lobby for it. That is not the case. A fifth reason that I'm doing this and standing up is based on that old quote that says, the only way that, and I'm misquoting it slightly, but I think listeners will understand what I'm trying to say. You know, evil wins when good people do nothing. Well, I'm not going to do nothing. And when you implement controls tyrannically over people, it's evil. You're taking away their freedom, and you're doing it on false grounds. and you're doing it in such a way as to control information, this is evil, and I'm calling it what it is. The mandate is evil, and I for one, am not going to take it lying down. I'm going to stand up and let my voice be heard. So I'm encouraging everyone to reconsider your position on this, on those grounds. Look rationally at the mortality rates. And in support of this, I would say the challenge is, well, you don't listen to the science. I have a whole list of doctors who I am listening to on this topic. And they are not quacks. They are mainstream, and they have spoken up loudly. Some of those doctors, 2 organizations that I look to for leadership and guidance on some of these issues, are the signers and co-signers, the 40-something and then thousands of co-signers, people who have signed on to the Great Barrington Declaration, gbdeclaration.org. So if you want to know what doctors I'm listening to, doctors from Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford, practicing medical physicians, those are some of the ones that I'm listening to and taking guidance from. If you want to know other doctors that I'm listening to, then you can go to FLCCC. These are doctors that are advocating treatments and early treatment and having great success in doing so. I'm definitely listening to those doctors. They are also highly esteemed, highly qualified, and practicing physicians who are finding success in fighting COVID. Consider the facts. Consider the facts. The 6th reason I'm doing this is because, to whatever extent that I can encourage anyone who is standing up beyond the reasons already discussed and beyond the other things that I've already talked about, it is to do so. And it is to tell you that with this decision to stand up and let my voice be heard by my fellow citizens, and I don't ask for any special consideration from anyone. Consider my words, consider the sources that I've gone to, make up your own mind. I am the first one to tell you that. Seek out the truth for yourself and follow it where you find it. And have the courage to do that. That has a ripple effect on those around you. And it's an encouragement to the people beside you for you to stand on what you actually believe. Base it in truth. And if you're like me in this regard, I would encourage you to do that with compassion and love and respect. Going back to another part of what I said earlier, the true damage to good order and discipline is coming as a result of the mandate, not in opposition to it. And for those of you who are resisting it, you're resisting it with your employer, you're resisting it with the government, with the Department of Defense, with whomever. Do so in such a way as to show respect. Do so in such a way as would honor the approaches taken by people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Mahatma Gandhi. Do so in such a way as to not be violent, but to show compassion and love, but also sternness and frankness and refusal to be bowed and refusal to be coerced or shoehorned. Look up that word. Many of us are being shoehorned into this situation. I'm going to close out this video shortly. It's gone fairly long. But along the lines of this last point, I would say that I've decided. I've made my decision on this particular thing. And I would encourage those of you who are like-minded to stand up and speak out. Stand up and speak out. Stop being silent. Figure out a way to stand up. Do what your own conscience is telling you to do. Seek out the truth. Don't be afraid of where that takes you. And in keeping with much wisdom from many different sources, don't act in a vacuum. Act with people you love around you. Act with advisors and counselors. Talk to the people that you respect and in your circle of friends. Listen to outside authorities. Consider other viewpoints. Do all of those things in pursuit of the truth. before you decide to act, so that your actions have a better chance of being something that you won't regret, and so that they'll be wise, and you can look back upon them with the proper kind of pride, knowing that you faced a difficult situation and you did the right thing in it. That's what I encourage you to do. And considering me and this source of information, because you're watching this and I'm another source of information for you, I again encourage you, do your own research. Don't do what I say just because I say to do it. On the other hand, receive encouragement if that's what you're receiving from watching this. Be encouraged. And maybe the last thing I should say is that this time is temporary and it will pass. And that there are consequences for the decisions that everyone is making, whether to act or not act. And don't be guilty of committing a sin of omission, of not standing up for something when you believed it right to do so, of not standing on your rights as an American, and thereby protecting the rights of the people to your left and right, and thereby protecting the rights of your children as they grow. There is more at stake here than just the present argument about the COVID-19 vaccination. What is at stake is government control and a level of tyranny and authority that many are choosing to allow to come into their individual lives and into their very bodies. This is truly unprecedented. A vaccine mandate of this magnitude. Don't let anyone tell you that vaccine mandates are not new. That's true, but they're arguing from a different basis, and I'll have to discuss that in a different video or a different venue. Lastly, I just want to apologize if there are. I'm not going to spend a lot of time editing this because I want to get it out and I want to publish it. And so, for any things that I've said that may need clarification, or if there have been long delays, or if it's been inefficient in its delivery, then I beg your forgiveness for those things, and I apologize that it's if it's not a clear and crisp video and doesn't, not clear and crisp information and hasn't delivered to you something that's useful. Again, my name is Wade Brown. None of the things that I've said in here should be taken to imply my endorsement or my representation of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Navy, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government in any stretch, in any way. Nor should any of my comments be taken to as a means to do anything other than stand in your own conscience and in considering your own individual actions. This is not a call to widespread disobedience to lawful orders. This is not a call to disorderly conduct of any kind. This is not a call to disrespect or dishonor those who are in positions of authority. You can respectfully decline an order if you believe it to be unlawful. You can do that. And you can do it in a way that honors yourself and honors the person that you're denying. So I'm not in any way calling for chaos or revolution or anything along those lines. I'm certainly not calling for the overthrow of the government or the system. We have a fantastic system, but it needs to be shepherded and tended to, and we all have a steward's responsibility to do so. So if nothing else, no matter which side of these issues you are on, please see our beautiful country, America, as a place that needs our stewardship and it needs tending to. And we have to pay attention to what's going on, and we have to attend to our freedoms and keep them healthy and keep them balanced. And we have to do so with compassion, and we have to do so driven by things, frankly, that we will not find in human nature, that we can only find in the divine. So I bid you all a wonderful day, and I hope that this information has been helpful and useful, and that you use it to good effect in your own life and in your own decisions. Take care.